pair of hikers from Rhode Island have been rescued after getting stuck in treacherous terrain on Mount Washington.
At least one hiker expressed they were feeling symptoms of hypothermia. Officials tell us the hikers were brought to safety around 10 p.m. and thankfully, there were no injuries.
This was no drill, but a real-life emergency deep in the White Mountains.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
I'm live. We'll do it live.
I have no idea what episode we're on now. It's, episode 34 after the crazy episode 33 with all those weird 33s popping up and then 33s after the fact. Remember that? It's so weird.
Are you into numerology? Is that your thing?
No, not at all. But, I mean, looking back on that episode, it was sort of funny. Just like the Frodo thing, the Jesus thing, the minus 33 clothing thing, and then the episode. I mean, it's just weird. Like 4 things for 33. Interesting.
The New World Order has taken over.
The podcast, yeah.
Speaking of that podcast, do you have anything that I feel like we could go on forever about winter hiking, but like, was there anything big that you think that we missed?
Oh my God. I struggled to think of anything. I mean, I know a few listeners have added a few things, but I think we covered a lot. I think if we had added more, it would have been too long for listeners. You know, it's like, geez. I guess it's a topic you could cover for hours. Like 2 hours is probably good.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I was thinking about this is like I continually see people post the same thing around like, I don't have any winter hiking experience, but I want to get out, and where's the best place to start? And I think my standard answer to that is always going to be, you know, if you really want to just sort of test out your equipment, try to find like a flat place locally to try it out. If you're going to come up to New Hampshire and you want to get some good views, then I always say Mount Willard is probably the best place to start. I think that it's going to give you a little bit of up, and it's going to be not that challenging. And then if something happens, like, you're not that far from civilization, right?
Oh, of course. So if you're talking about geography, then the other thing is like temperature and just weather. Don't start out in a blizzard. You know, pick some modest, cooler temps. Don't go for sub-zero in a blizzard. That's not a good idea.
Yeah. There's always going to be those like there'll be 3 or 4 of them, and it'll be 3 or 4 stretches of and usually these stretches go for like 4 days or whatever, and you'll get these crazy cold conditions, or you'll get like ridiculous wind and snow coming up, and you'll see a lot of people on social media will get out there and they'll sort of get on their soapboxes and say like, oh, don't go out, don't hike, and yeah, in general, like, don't go above tree line, but you know, even when it gets crazy like that, you can do things where you stay below tree line, or you stay flat, or you just go shorter than planned. Sometimes that's a great way to test equipment. You know, we mostly focused on beginners, but like I remember when me and you remember when we did that hike on Mount Flume and Liberty, when we car spotted, and we went and we knew that it was going to be like minus 40 wind chill. Yeah. And I even said, I was like, I don't even think that this is like a good idea to go out. And you were like, no, Liberty and Flume is a good choice because we're not going to be exposed above tree line for that long. And you were 100% right, and it was a good way to test out our equipment. So if you are experienced and you want to go on that, you know, crazy weather, you can do it. You just got to pick the right place to do it.
Right. Oh yeah, that day was nuts. I mean, just like 30 seconds on that summit was enough. But yeah.
But think about how much we learned on that trip too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being on the lee side, the less windy side of the mountain, which is generally the eastern side, that helps a lot, because we were trying to prepare for that up and over that summit cone, and had to put on different layers, and you know, planning your route and stopping points to prepare for the next step of the leg is important.
Yeah, exactly. And I learned, like, when you fall into a river crossing, like, your gaiters will keep you a lot more dry than you think they will.
Well, my garters hold my gaiters up, so the water's not getting in anywhere.
Oh yeah, that's becoming another thing, like cats, the garter. So, cool. So we've got we got a busy show here, Stomp. But do you want to move on to sponsors and coffee talk stuff?
Yeah, let's do that. We have some donations here. But first, I want you to know that I have my internet thing worked out. I called Spectrum the other day, and they said that my modem had not rebooted in 56 days, which is sort of interesting because it was rebooting every single hour, especially while we were recording. So I don't know what's going on, the disconnect there, but fingers crossed, I think we're in good shape tonight. So back to coffee. We have 5 coffees were bought by someone, or should I say donated. Cheeto bought 5, and this is an interesting one. Giant Moon Penis bought us 1 coffee. Isn't that swell? That was spontaneous. Did you catch that one?
Yeah.
Wow, I felt
so
dumb
am I gonna
myself.
have to set the rating for the show as explicit for Giant Moon Penis? Is that the Instagram handle?
Well, I guess. Yeah. Well, no, it was just a donation. So people can put whatever they want on the coffee platform, Buy Me a Coffee. And this person just put Giant Moon Penis. So, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it is what it is. People can do what they want. And I'm noticing that some entrepreneurs are starting to put their businesses up there and stuff like that. And it's all good. It's like, yeah, sure, we'll plug you if you make a donation. That's great. But just to...
As long as Giant Moon Penis isn't plugging you. Or do we have to... We probably should cut that out.
Well, maybe. That's a good one, too. See? This is getting sly. This is definitely pushing rated R at the moment. But, yeah, before we move on to the sponsors, I just want to say thanks to all the donations. Each week, Slasher reaches millions of people across the country and world through quality reporting, expert analysis, and thoughtful commentary that connects us to our hiking communities and the world we live in. This critical work is made possible by the contributions of individuals like Giant Moon Penis and others who believe in the mission of Slasher. To create a more informed hiking public, one challenged and invigorated by a deeper understanding and appreciation of events, ideas, and cultures. Individuals like Giant Moon Penis that donate to Slasher ensure that we are able to continue sharing hiking stories that inform and inspire audiences. Donations of any size, no pun intended, help advance this essential public service. Thank you. How was that?
That was a mouthful. So.
This is going to get us banned off the platforms, man. This is great.
So all right. So the GMP thing is it's a meme, and I'm not going to get into with this episode. So what I'll do a teaser is that there's a story behind the GMP thing, and I think it was a bit of a sort of a tongue-in-cheek joke towards me, and I'll reveal the backstory next episode. So now you have to wait until the next episode to know what
all right
that is all about.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's get back to reality here. We're gonna plug Reckless. A special thanks to Reckless Brewing, where you'll find the best food, craft beer, and fun, just 15 minutes from Franconia Notch, many of the 4,000 footers in less than 10 minutes from the Five Corners. And this is really cool. Somebody made a donation to the New Hampshire Outdoor Council of $100, and it's Nick Grillo, and he is a general contractor that's local to the North Country here. He just actually did some work with my folks and just nailed it with their floor. Their flooring is amazing. So he's available for decks, additions, remodeling, windows and doors, fully insured, 20 years plus experience. So it's Nick Grillo, general contractor.
Yeah, Nick's a good friend of ours, so I'll put all this info on the show notes here. And Nick just joined us for a hike recently, so he's a good dude and does good work. So definitely hit him up if you need any work done.
Yeah, and just because he's a friend doesn't mean that we're plugging him his work. His work is top tier. There's no question about it. It goes without saying. Very impressive. All right. So what do we got? What are we doing tonight? What is this all about?
Show summary here. All right. So, Stomp, you ever feel stuck at home and you get that itch to hit the open road and explore a little bit?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
Yeah, well, something I've always wanted to do is to take off for an extended period of time and just explore all the amazing national parks and scenic areas of the United States. Most people never get past the stage of dreaming about becoming a traveling nomad. So tonight, I'm excited to interview our friend Janine, who actually pulled it off and hit the open road with her family. We'll learn about what it takes to really make a drastic lifestyle change as we explore the world of families who are giving up their homes and turning to full-time travel lifestyle. Later in the show, we'll catch up on some recent search and rescue news, and probably share a little bit of White Mountain history as well. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
All right. So we're going to be talking about like full-time nomadic life here. So hitting the open road in an RV.
I know, isn't that cool? I mean, I got to travel across country when I was younger, and it was an amazing trip. I can't imagine doing it to the extent that these folks do in this segment that you recorded. Very cool. I really enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess just to start off with, so we got a couple of things we gotta clear up before we get to the segment here. But beer talk, you drinking anything?
Yeah, just having a little not quite a whiskey sour, but something similar. I don't know. I don't even know what it was. Something, just a homemade concoction.
That had whiskey in it?
No, that's why I'm hesitant. I don't even know if this is something you can do legally. It's rum and whiskey sour mix, so I don't know.
Maybe you invented a drink. If anybody knows what that drink is, it's got to have a name. Every drink has a name.
It's like the pirate world meets the cowboy world. It's like some weird in between, you know?
Yeah, rum sour or something.
How about you?
So I don't have any beers tonight, and we've had like these. Matter of fact, I think I drank one of these like probably 10 shows ago. We've had these Bud Light seltzers in our refrigerator for months, and I was just like...
You're still working on those, huh?
Well, there's two left. There's a mango, and then there's a black cherry, and I was like, all right, I'm going to finish these because I'm sick of looking at them, and I want to have like more space in the refrigerator. So I have a mango Bud Light seltzer that I'm gonna finish up tonight.
Well,
and I'm probably gonna throw the black cherry one in the trash.
Low cal. It's all right. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm easing my way into drunk November after sober October.
Good stuff.
Cool. All right. So recent hikes. So I'll just say for the next like 2-3 shows, I've been hiking a ton, and with the Big Finish hike and everything, you know, we're getting some construction done around the house, and my wife is just like, you got to paint this, you got to paint that, we got to do the yard, blah, blah, blah. So I'm probably until I think she's taking a trip right around Thanksgiving, so I'll probably sneak out like towards the end of the month, but for the next, I think 2 weeks or so, I am like in like the honeydew list mode.
Yeah, it happens. That's all right.
So hopefully you've been hiking so that I can live vicariously through you.
Yeah, well, you know, this is part of the, remember the joke, the 48 divided by 2, you know, when search and rescue folks only make it halfway up. That was my most recent, so I made it up to Falling Waters, up to Shining Rock, and then back. But it was beautiful because it's really funny. Whenever we get called up to that area, it's always mid-afternoon to the witching hour, like 5 o'clock, and the sun's starting to cast that yellow glow, the Alpen glow, as some folks call it. And man, it was just beautiful. And there's just a little bit of ice starting to seep into the rocks and the footpath all the way up to Shining Rock. So it was nice little hike.
Awesome, very good.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll have some more stuff to share on recent hikes. But I guess we should just transition into my segment with Janine. But I guess, Stomp, just to tee this up.
Yeah.
when COVID kicked in, it was, I wasn't able to do a ton of hiking for a while. And I got a little bit of an addiction on TikTok. So I was watching all these videos. And one of the trends on TikTok was these like van lifers and these like full-time RV people.
Yeah.
And I sort of got very interested. And a lot of times it was like people that were like, they were basically converting like these like Econoline vans into like, full-time travel vans with like beds and kitchens and all the fixings. And then there was also the sort of another version of it where people would like go on the road for RVs and they'd be traveling all over the place. And I think with COVID, a lot of people found that they had a remote work situation for the first time, and people were taking advantage of it and kind of getting out on the road. So I was always kind of interested. I was watching some YouTube videos, and it's just kind of an interesting thing. And then fast forward a couple of months, my cousin Janine, who she lives down in New Jersey, her and her husband had decided that they were going to go on the road full time. So they, and I'll get into it with the discussion with Janine, but they were not like, outdoorsy type people as far as I knew. But I watched them over the course of like 6 or 8 months transition into sort of a suburban lifestyle. And then they hit all of these national parks, and they've got 3 kids. So they got on the road and they hit all these national parks. They've got like these amazing photos that they've been posting on their Instagram account. And I was curious to kind of talk to Janine to find out how they went from this suburban lifestyle with, they weren't hikers or, super outdoors. They were more beach people. How did they get into this lifestyle? So I figured it would be a good topic for the show, because I'm thinking that there's a lot of people that are looking at a new lifestyle change where they may be working remotely because of COVID, or, they may be looking at, looking at extended periods of time where they can travel and still earn income, or even just like, forget about working for a year and get on the road. So I talked to Janine a lot about sort of her background and, her experience with the kids and learning and everything about traveling. So I thought it was pretty cool. So, we're going to jump into that segment right now, and then we'll jump back and cover search and rescue news.
It's time for Slasher's Guest of the Week.
So welcome, Janine. Thanks for sitting down with me.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. It's good to catch up. It's been a long time.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah. So just for the audience's sake, Janine is my cousin. So she knows where all of the bodies are buried, and she knows all the bad stories about me.
Oh, not really. Let's go both ways, though.
Yes, exactly. But I wanted to have Janine on to do a segment on something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I've become more and more aware as I've gotten older. And I feel like this is a trend that has picked up with COVID, and even before COVID. I think this the main topic that we want to cover here is sort of digital nomads, or RV life, or van life, whatever you want to call it. How do you describe it anyway, Janine? Like you're basically on the road.
Yeah, so we just call ourselves full-timers now. It's like full-time RVing, full-timers is the way that we classify ourselves when we're sort of kids are meeting other kids on the road.
Got it. And is there like different subsets of these full-timers? Like I know there's van lifers that are typically, like I think of the van lifers as like the younger social media type people that are just in the smaller vans, and then you're in like a larger fifth wheel, right?
Right. We went big. So we sort of always caveat it with, that this is temporary for us, that it's finite. We only have a certain period of time that we're on the road because we move so quickly. But we're always kind of the center of attention because of our New Jersey plates. So everybody wants to hear the story and why we're here and why it's the middle of a Wednesday and we have 3 kids running around. So.
Got it. All right. Well, before we get into that, so just to tee this up for the audience. So like I said, Janine is my cousin. So we actually grew up in the same town together. So, I mean, we've known each other, since we were little. And if you're not from, most of the listeners are from the New England area, so they'll understand this. But if you're not from the New England area, when you're a kid growing up, typically you are either you're a Cape Cod kid, or you're like a New Hampshire, Maine kid, and we were Cape Cod kids. So Janine's mom had the house down the Cape, so we would spend all of our summers going down the Cape. You actually spent like the whole summer there. I would just visit for like a week or two to bother you, right?
Correct. Yeah, that was our thing. Water, ocean, the Cape.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So somehow I feel like when I got a little bit older, I had some friends that had places up in Maine and New Hampshire. And then when I married Kristen, her parents had the place in Maine. So I became like, I transitioned from a Cape person to a New Hampshire, Maine person. Matter of fact, I haven't been down the Cape in 20 years, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's almost a sin. That's a sin.
I know. I got to get down there. But anyway, so Janine and I, we've known each other forever, and spent all kinds of family events. And then as life goes on, you get a little bit older, you sort of go your own ways. We both have, busy family lives. And, you moved from Massachusetts to New York and New Jersey, right?
Correct. So I did that sort of transition back when I was in my, higher education days. And then that sort of continued after my schooling through now into my marriage and family. So my husband's family's in the New Jersey area, so that's where I am based now. But he has a connection to New England, and they spend summers on Nantucket. So that was our connection together, and continues to be so.
Got it. Yeah. And the reason why I want to talk about this is to sort of set the stage, because one of the things I'm always fascinated about is people that make like drastic lifestyle changes and sort of what the motivation behind that is. So I'll just give you sort of my impression. So, again, like me and Janine known each other forever, grew up together, family. But you sort of go your own ways. And from my perspective, looking at it through social media and family events, when I would see you, I was always like, all right, she's sort of like, she lived in New York City. She's in the Jersey suburbs. And I was like, she's a total like city girl that, so when I got wind that you were going to be hitting the road and doing all this outdoorsy stuff, I was like, I wonder what motivated her to make that sort of a lifestyle change. And I wonder if she knows what the hell she's in for when she starts getting into these like urban, these like rural areas. So can you talk a little bit about like what was there a spark, or give us the background on what motivated you to go from sort of the suburban house mom to a full-timer?
Sure. So I was through and through a, Jersey girl. I, did my shopping at the mall, like, typical like suburban mom. Outdoorsy to me was, eating dinner on the back porch. And then I sort of got hooked into this Instagram, renovating RVs, spending time in these fabulous places. And then COVID hit, and we were sort of in the midst of this being stuck in a house, homeschooling, virtual schooling our kids. And fortunate enough for my husband and I, we own a business. And so we were both home and around a lot. And it got to be, it was fine that first spring when everyone was kind of stuck home. But as that spring became summer, and then I was starting to look forward to the fall and think to myself, I'm going to be stuck in this house with my 3 rambunctious children, and it's going to be a Jersey winter. And what's going to happen here? And that the school decided it was going to be a half-day program. And so I was like, oh my God, this is just not going to work. It's not going to work for me, my husband, the business, nothing. So that fantasy of sort of redoing an RV, being on the beach somewhere for a month, schooling the kids, swimming in the ocean, that was just like, oh my God, we should do this. And so that's what got us thinking about it. That's not what actually made it a reality. Everything after that sort of fell into place, and it really became something that was just sort of meant to be. And to answer the second part of your question, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. None. Like, I thought when I first sort of spoke to you, like, should I buy hiking boots or trail runners? That, I was going to go to the Grand Canyon and take the shuttle bus around and go to some viewpoints. And the adventure and the trip itself, took a completely different path. And that's what now puts me here, has me talking about things like hiking, and is so transformative.
Yeah, that's awesome. And from the point where you were, and I think everybody dealt with this when we were, when in the heat of COVID, when everybody was dealing with remote school and virtual learning, like it was very stressful. And I think a lot of people sort of thought about like, geez, is this going to be a long-term situation and how am I going to deal with that? So it sounds like you really thought this through and started thinking like, all right, we might have a plan B here. How do you go from, really sort of exploring and researching it to finally pulling the trigger and making a decision to do it?
So, one thing was when I, sort of said to my husband, Corey, like, okay, I really want to do this. So then we started to get active in the full-time RVing, blogging, YouTube community. And there's quite a lot of content out there that sort of hold your hand kind of through the process. And once Corey started researching and exploring that, he sort of realized, okay, this isn't as hard as we may have thought. He's in finance, commuted to New York City every single day. I'm an attorney. We do have this business now, but we come from very traditional, very, suburban type lifestyle. So, and then it was like, okay, we're going to live in an RV. So, once we crossed the hurdle that it was doable and that it actually wasn't as hard and that there was a lot of resources out there, then we started the process of, okay, let's look for one, and talking to some of our friends who had them and figuring out, okay, where would we go? And is it easy to plan an itinerary? And then the first major thing happened to us that fell into place was that we were fortunate enough to have, a family in our town looking for a place to live. He was a professional athlete and they ended up renting our home. And so that was the first thing that dropped. And when we were presented with that opportunity, then we sort of said to ourselves, okay, this is kind of like a no-brainer. There's just there's a short period. We feel comfortable with this. Now we can explore, actually purchasing an RV and a truck to haul it, which we've never even driven a truck, either one of us.
I did kind of laugh thinking about you driving a truck because it wasn't your aesthetic back then.
No, and I drive a dually.
Yes, I know. Well, I mean, so how did you go about purchasing an RV and a truck like that?
Sure. So I wanted to go small. We were looking at like 34, 36 footers. We were looking at really old ones. We were looking at small trucks, and I have this friend who lives out in Sun Valley, and she just, she knows Cartwright 9. She said, you two need to go big. Like, there's just, a lot of people believe you start small and you start fast. And so we were kind of trying to adopt that. And these great friends of ours were like, no, it's just not going to work for you. You need to find something that's big. You need to have a powerful car. And so we ended up with a Keystone Montana High Country, which is one of the top of the line fifth wheels. It's used, which was kind of important to us. There's a whole debate about, new versus used. And then the truck was actually harder to find, believe it or not. We ended up with Ram diesel dually. And we are so happy with the choices of those both. I renovated our RV, and your listeners can actually check us all out on Instagram and stuff. I did a complete transformation of the RV to make it what I call now like a tiny home. And that's one thing we did learn, is that in this full-time community, you actually don't need to sacrifice very much. We thought that we were going to be giving up a lot to live like this, and we actually didn't. We pretty much have all the luxuries of home, except a dishwasher.
Got it. And the kids, I mean, I'm assuming the kids are like anything. Like even if they have a decent sized room, like they're probably were over the moon to be in an RV and have their little sleeping areas and could care less about, like, even though you're going from probably a larger house to a more compressed overall living space. The kids probably love it. They're probably jumping on the bunk beds and happy as could be, I would think.
Exactly. They each have their own little bunk. We made that a priority, that they each would have their own little space, but it's little. I mean, They don't have much room or privacy, but we gave them, you can see it's awesome. You can see the whole transformation in their little bunks online. And, I did them up really well, really nice. I gave them little, USB plugs next to their little night lights so they can sit in their little bunk and have their little electronic device if they want. And they have adapted so well. It was quite remarkable, honestly, especially my two younger ones. I mean, we're all outdoorsy now. I have a whole different definition of that.
Yeah.
But we're all outdoorsy now, and especially my two little ones, they're in their bunks when it's dark, but otherwise they are out and about and physically exercising, and it's a completely different lifestyle.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so basically then you're able to rent the house, you did your research, you're able to get the RV and the truck. What about the culture of the full-timers? Was there anything and I'll just be honest with you, one thing that I would be curious about is, the other people that you're interacting with. I'm assuming that you'll get a big mix of people where you'll get some people that are super religious, other people that are sort of more liberty driven, that, may not be as religious, but are sort of freedom loving. And you'll get a big mix of personalities. Did you, any concerns with the whole culture when you started to meet people, or did it end up being pretty smooth for you?
It was actually remarkably smooth, and the community is like nothing we really anticipated. I mean, we sort of had all these warning things we were looking for, and these red flags and these concerns, and really all fallen to the wayside. We find that we're just getting back now after the summer into having more contact with the full-time community. The full-time community kind of hides a little bit in the summer when, it's more the vacationers that are coming in and out of the RV parks. Same for us as well, because we wanted to squeeze in so much in such a small amount of time. We didn't plunk down in a couple places this summer. We really, hit the road hard, and we were moving often. But what we found up through probably early July, and what we're finding now again in the fall, is that, the full-timers are everywhere. They're all around you. So all the kids in the RV parks and campgrounds that you see, most of them are full-timers, unless it happens to be a weekend. And so you immediately are meeting these people, and everyone's outside, and everyone's having a cocktail or, sitting around the fire, and everyone's just very welcoming, very helpful. We had an incident, 2 weeks ago where we had some water, we were leaking somewhere, and the neighbor just came over and just turned it off. I mean, everyone's just, and if you have a problem, or if you need a tool, or if you need anything, I looked out the window the other day and the neighbor was holding my dog. I have 3 kids. I'm like, could someone go help the neighbor? I don't know why he's holding the dog, but everyone is just so nice and helpful. I'm curious. Everyone wants to know how we're out on the West Coast from New Jersey. I mean, they just what are you people doing here?
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. So what was once you decided to head out, you got all of your RV packed up and all your gear and everything. What was the itinerary, just in a general sense? I know I remember seeing you headed south, I think you hit Florida, and then you were pretty much out west pretty quickly though, right? Yeah.
So, and this is all kind of interesting because the whole winterizing the rig was winterized, and it was January, and we were in Massachusetts. So we needed to find this window, get out of Massachusetts, get as far south as we could so that we could de-winterize it, fill the tanks. And that was very stressful. That was the first hurdle we had to kind of overcome. Plus, we'd never driven this rig, which was 60 feet, and we'd each had 2 days of lessons. So that whole first experience was let's just get as far south as possible. So we did. We went all the way down to Key West, and then we went the entire Gulf Coast over to the Southwest, and we plan to spend the spring in the Southwest. Since then, we came up the California coast all the way up to Washington. We had hopes to be in Alaska, but because of the border, we couldn't get the timing right on that. We've done the entire Pacific Northwest. We did make it to Canada to go to Banff. And now we are in Utah, Wyoming, Idaho to actually sell our rig. We sold it and we're handing it over to a new family. And so that'll be the last chapter here before we head home back east.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So it's worked out well for you. And how long total have you been on the road for?
So we've been on the road since the middle of January, and we have done 30,000 miles. We have done over 100 RV parks and campgrounds. We have, I think we're on 32 national parks and 27 or 28 states now.
Wow, that's impressive. So I could just, one question I did have for you that I'm curious about as well is, like, I can't count the number of times where me and my lovely wife have packed up, especially when the kids were little and we were rushing around and trying to get everything going. And we ended up having like a little bit of a, back and forth where, clearly I was always in the wrong and she was always in the right, but we would constantly be fighting. So you have to like do this like all the time where you're packing up and moving out, and like, how do you get your system down without killing each other? Yeah,
totally. So, it's funny because people ask this question on a lot of the, in the RV community chat rooms all the time. I always give them the same answer, which is I am in charge of the inside and Cartwright is in charge of the outside. And if we start screaming at each other about the way he's parking the rig, I literally am like, okay, I'm done. I get in the car and he parks the rig himself, which to most people would be like, oh my God, how can he back up 60 feet in the dark? And it's like, you know what? We've been on the road 9 months now. He can do it. I butt out. And same with him inside. And the few times that we really try to meddle in the other one's business is when, we break something.
Yeah.
But we both have our systems totally down pat. And now it's just a matter of, getting our kids to do stuff, making them help out, and be as productive as possible with the process. But we've nailed it down. And, at the beginning it was hilarious, actually.
I can imagine.
Oh, it was hilarious.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, what about the education plan for the kids? So you're basically homeschooling the kids. How old are the kids?
So we have a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 7-year-old now.
Okay, so a huge amount of energy. You're homeschooling them. That was not something you were doing prior to COVID. So can you talk a little bit about how that evolved?
Sure. So New Jersey, thankfully, has very lenient requirements for homeschool, which we were, happy to embrace. What we've basically done is used the standard core curriculum, the math books that they would use in school, and some of the other standard curriculum books, and we're just following those through very traditionally. But with regard to both their strengths and their weaknesses, we took kind of a different approach. And so Cartwright took on the task of actually learning one of the very well-known reading programs, which is Wilson. And he taught my two little ones that program throughout the entire spring, to the point where they're both reading very, very well now. And then my oldest is an avid reader. And so we are constantly studying new topics and whatnot with him. He did essays on things like Old Man and the Sea, tons of stuff with respect to the national parks and things in places we've been to like Mount Rushmore. But we just decided that we were going to cruise through the topics and the subjects that they were good at. And we were going to slow down and rewind and really focus hard on the things, their weaknesses and the things that they needed help with. And because there's no downtime, there's no bathroom breaks and recess and get in line, we can just really cruise right through it. It's been remarkable. And I think the transition back will be still a transition and a bit of an adjustment. But in terms of the things that they needed work with, especially the reading in the younger ones, drastically improved. And so I think it worked out really, really well. And I don't think it's as hard as people generally, make it out to be.
Got it. What are some of the changes you've seen in the kids and I've been actually reading a lot about, there's there's been an increase in anxiety and depression among kids over the last probably 10 to 15 years. And one of the things that psychologists have been looking at is this idea that we've bubble wrapped our kids in extreme safetyism, and especially living in that suburban lifestyle where you're sending them to school, they're in organized sports, they're never away from the family, they don't have free play where it's completely unsupervised. I feel like, doing this lifestyle where you're moving around, you're with them all the time, I'm sure, but I'm sure they get plenty of time to do free play out in the, the different RV campgrounds where they're at. Do you feel like they've gained more confidence and have become sort of more self-sufficient with this lifestyle?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's for my 9 and 7-year-old, it's mind blowing. I mean, when they get up, like this morning, they got up, they did their school, and they were off. And they're off at the playground and the bouncy house that's here. There's a mini golf where we're at. They're on their bikes. I mean, they ride their bikes miles every single day. They went into the gift shop here and asked the manager, I don't know, something or other, and they're painting rocks, and they're doing all sorts of things. They take it upon themselves to just do these things, ask for these things. It's remarkable about their engagement with other kids. I mean, the friends that they've made friends at every single camp in an RV park all over the country. And I mean, the lists of people, and because of Instagram and Facebook, we can keep in touch with all these people. So they're following our journey, we're following theirs. My older one, he's 12. So, he still has a phone and he's still sort of connected to some of the old routines. But, we haven't had television for months. On occasion, we'll be in an RV park that will have it. But I usually opt for the, super spot with the fire pit over the cable television. So, they haven't had those sort of things, but the idea that they can run around in free play and then, we call them home for dinner just reminds me of how life was like back in North Reading, 30-something years ago.
Yeah, or even down the Cape. I remember we were little kids and we would walk to go get ice cream down the street from your house, or we would go to Hyannis Center on our own and walk around. So I feel like that's missing, and there's a lot of research right now that sort of points to this idea of free play and sort of, obviously you want to keep your kids safe, but when you apply extreme safetyism to the kids, it's creating anxiety in them where they don't have the confidence to do things on their own. So it sounds like you've seen a great benefit from it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're not the only ones that have kind of adopted it. Obviously at the beginning, it was a huge transition, and we have walkie-talkies so I can communicate with them and check in. And we've gone through all the, safe strangers and all the normal things that you have to do to, be cautious and still be able to sort of protect them. But, and they have to stay together if one comes back without the other, but in terms of, putting their helmets on and having the right gear that they need for where it is that they're going or what it is that they're doing, it's awesome to see how much. I mean, they can pack up their little backpacks and they can fill up their water, and they can fill up their, little bubble things, and they know what they need. They know they need their hiking shoes, and they're so much more self-sufficient now that we've done this. But we have done it like a routine. There is a lot of routine to what we're doing, even though it sort of seems like we're very nomadic.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I did want to cover with you is I remember when you started, you have an Instagram. So I'll link this in the show notes, but it's Chasing Cartwright is the Instagram page, right? Yes. And I remember seeing, like in the beginning, I think when you were on the East Coast, it was like pictures from the beach. And I was like, yeah, they're walking from the parking lot or whatever. Yeah. But very quickly, by the time you hit the Southwest, it started to become more and more. It was like, all right, yeah, they're definitely like hiking into someplace. Like they're not close to the RV, and they're starting to sort of get their confidence when it comes to exploring outside of just like, walking out from parking lots. So can you talk a little bit about how you and Cartwright kind of became a little bit more adventurous and confident in your abilities to explore away from the normal areas that you could just get to from pulling up and walking outside a car?
Yeah, so I think Cartwright had I don't know if he planned it to be sort of a goal, but he kind of, I think, almost had like a premonition about it, because when we started the trip, we were actually in Nantucket. And he would take the kids out to like Stanford Farms and the different places around Nantucket, and he would call it training. And we talk about it now all the time. We're like, remember we were training in Nantucket? But it was just like miles. Like, can we walk 3 miles? Can we make it back before dark? There were a couple instances in Nantucket when he was with the kids and it got dark and he was like, I need a headlamp. And so there were, and then, then we started, and like you said, we were walking, along the beach and doing kind of all that stuff. When we got to the Southwest, there was stuff we wanted to see. And I think the first Big Bend was one of the places that, we kind of got our feet wet. And then we got to Guadalupe, which is a national park, and it was amazing. We were kind of boondocking in this parking lot, and you can just hike right from the parking lot. And so we got up and we were all excited, and off we went. It ended up being a very challenging hike. We were scrambling up ginormous boulders the whole way up to Devil's Point, I think, or Devil's Bridge, it was called. And it to this day is my 12-year-old's favorite hike. And I think once we all kind of explored that and realized like, oh my God, we can do it, and it was fun. And then it just sort of spiraled from there. But I will say a lot of it is the kids. We were worried that my 7-year-old just couldn't do it. And she's the best. She's actually, her and my husband are the 2 strongest of everyone in the family. She's a phenomenal hiker, and my 9-year-old's phenomenal too. And my 12-year-old could be phenomenal, but he's 12, and so he's and so he'll hang with me more than the other 3. But the other 3 are strong, and because of that, it sort of pushed us all to kind of do more, go further, and that's exactly what sort of happened on now what's become a national park / hiking adventure.
Awesome. So there's a couple of places. So I've been to the Southwest. I've been up to Seattle and Portland and that area. So there was a couple of places that I wanted to sort of get your thoughts on. So just starting in the Sedona, Page, Arizona area. So you talked about the Devil's Bridge. So you've done, that was the hike that sort of clicked for you guys. So that's like about a 4-mile hike, I think. Yeah.
So we did Devil's Bridge and we loved it. It was funny because we talk about this one because it was an early one, and if we did it again, we would let our kids go out the bridge. Yes. My husband and I went out, and we actually, I took my oldest out, but I would not let the other 2 go anywhere near it. I mean, I paranoid. I was like, no way, they could fall. And so now, full circle, I would definitely be a little bit more adventurous with them and let them do a little bit more. But yeah, that was one of the first ones. We did Cathedral Rock.
Yeah.
Which was awesome out there as well.
Yeah, so those 2 hikes, just for the audience's sake, so those are outside of Sedona, Arizona. So the Devil's Bridge is this amazing sort of natural arch where when you hike up, it's like I said, it's probably about a 3 or 4 mile hike in, and then they have this almost like natural, I would call it like a natural amphitheater that sort of overlooks the arch.
Yeah.
So you can sit sort of on these rocks and watch people walk out, and people go and get their pictures taken. Matter of fact, me and Kristen years ago, we went. In the late 90s, there was a wedding going on right on the bridge, and everybody was watching which was amazing. So, and then Cathedral Rock is another great hike out there. So Sedona is beautiful if people have never been there. It's a great place because there's like dozens of these like amazing hikes, and I think Devil's Bridge is probably one of the longest ones. The rest of them are like within a mile or 2 of the parking lot. You can get to all these amazing sites.
And Cathedral Rock is interesting because I was just looking at it today. And it's only like 750 feet in elevation, but but it's only a mile and maybe a quarter. So, and it's an out and back. And I mean, it kicked our butts. Like, I was so afraid, and there were so many scrambling points. And I mean, the kids blew past me. That was the first time my asthma sort of bothered me. And it was just, and now I'm like, no, that has to be like 1,500 feet in elevation. No, that can't be. Something must be wrong. And it's like, oh my God, yeah. Once you get into it, and once you start pushing yourself, and once we've realized as a family what we're capable of, now it's just, I'm just so excited because there's just so many more opportunities for fun hikes that we have now. But I will say, Sedona was an amazing place to boondock. It is probably one of our most favorite places, or second favorite place in the country to boondock. And if we went back there, we would do that for, a longer amount of time. And, one of the things that really excited the kids about Sedona was Slide Rock, which is a state park, and they can actually it's like a natural waterfall where they can slide down the rocks. And I think it was the small little things like that we did with them when we were like, this is like real life water park. And they got so excited and they were just so pumped. And I mean, we were just wowed by, the different types of adventure, that it wasn't just like walking in the woods.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area there. And when you say boondock, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to tell you what I think that means.
Okay.
I'm assuming, and I think I'd probably pick this up on one of your Instagram posts, but I think that means that you're basically going out to an area where you can just leave the RV without being associated with a campground, right? You're just sort of in the desert in a pull-off area and it's just basically you and the coyotes and the kids, right?
Right. So it's no connection, no water, no sewer, nothing. And it's typically on Bureau of Land Management, BLM land. And so Sedona has some great spots for BLM land. And one of the things that we've found since we've been in the Pacific Northwest, actually, is that it was easier for us in a bigger rig to be in BLM land in the desert because there's no trees. So when you pull into these vast amounts of BLM land that let you camp, you kind of have to find a spot, and you don't really want to be on top of anybody else. And so it's much easier to, in the desert, to kind of find a spot that's not, going to encroach on anybody else, but not have trees. Once we got kind of into the Pacific Northwest, we had a harder time with the boondocking, but we absolutely love it. And my favorite thing about boondocking with kids, because you would think that I would hate it to not have, water, as much water as I wanted, or as much anything. Yeah. But, my kids can run around and be as loud as they want, and like they're not going to get lost. Like there's no place for them to go, and there's nobody to take them. So it's like this. It's amazing. So I feel so much relief when we get to a boondocking location. I'm like so relaxed because we can just sit down and have a drink and have a fire, and it's like go play.
Where was the first place that you did this at?
So we actually boondocked on the Mexican border, in Texas. And in hindsight, that probably wasn't the safest or most wise decision, but we did. We were in a very beautiful, it was more like, sort of like a parking rest sort of area on a river went through. And, it was great. We loved it. And after we realized, okay, we can do this, we've tried to integrate that into our routine a lot more. It's easy now that we know, how I can cook dinner and what we can have, and, how much heat we can have, or, understanding like our power and stuff like that. We can do it a lot more, but I love it. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So when you look back now, as you're getting towards the end of this journey, what would you say were some big mistakes that you made that you would want to do over? And then what were some of the biggest surprises?
So, we made a lot of mistakes, like with the rig, and total like screw ups that are, now looking back, I wouldn't change it because I think it's kind of hilarious. But, something that speaks to the fact that we were a suburban family, if you don't go through the checklist when you close the rig to hit the road, just stuff happens. And so our biggest motto is like, we need to take our time and slow down. Because if we don't, it'll cost us a lot of money, and it could cost us a month in a repair shop. And one of the little things is that the doors in the rig, if they're not all closed properly and you don't bring all of the slides in the right order with everything being closed and locked down, like a door will like literally come off. And so, I ripped the major door off at one point, which was bad, but, the little cabinet doors come off like all the time. And so as a New Jersey suburban family, You would think that we would like have a nice checklist and try for that not to happen. But instead what we did is we Amazon ourselves a pack of 30 hinges. So we just, let the cupboard fall off.
Just replace the hinges.
A new hinge and screw it back on. And so my kids think it's hilarious because they're like, we could just do this the right way. I'm like, no, we got more hinges. We're fine. So that's one of the things that I think I'd pay a little bit more attention. We've also had several leaks. Car Rate's been responsible for 3 major leaks. One was more like, a flood, but so those are the 3 things that I'm sort of ashamed about. But they're learning. It was the learning curve. We knew that those things were bound to happen. In terms of the surprises, I didn't realize that the trip itself was going to turn into, like I mentioned before, really. I began halfway through the trip to target the agenda to national parks and hiking. And I didn't expect that to happen. I expected us to, Southern California, for example, we went to Malibu, we spent 2 nights on the beach, and then we ended up, going inland to Sequoia National Park. So I really expected us to be a month on the beach in Malibu, and not moving so quickly to hike.
That's awesome, and I feel like you've hit your life quota at the beach anyway. So it's good to be inland.
Although I will say, once we got to the Pacific Northwest, it just became a different place. It didn't feel the same. The beach was the same. The activities. Now now we have a paddleboard, a kayak, a dog. So the beach isn't quite the same, anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you, I noticed that you picked up a new family member halfway along. So how did that come about?
So we knew that we wanted a puppy, and we were debating on the trip or not on the trip, on the trip or not on the trip. The type of puppy that we wanted was, a little bit more challenging to find, and we happened to find her in Idaho. So we ended up with a silver lab from Idaho. And the timing worked because we'd been waiting a while, and she happened to come at a time that we were in that general area, so we knew we could get her. But we wanted the time to bond with her. And people, especially the people back home, think we're crazy for adding a puppy to this mix. But I have to tell you, this community just generally, and especially the full-time RVing community and the retired people that full-time, everyone has a dog. Like, we're like the only people that don't. And we were starting to kind of feel that. There's like, when you check into these RV parks and campgrounds, they're like, here the showers and bathrooms are, and here's the dog park. And we're like, well, we don't have a dog. Well, we don't have a dog. And it's just every box. I mean, they don't care whether I have 1 kid or 2. They want to know if I have 1 dog or 2. Yeah. And so it got to the point where it was like, this will actually be easy. And so it's been amazing. She was easily trained because we're outside all the time. She's with us all the time. So, she's just having a blast, and she's growing up with us. And so the second big reason why we got her is for the transition home. We're hoping that transitioning home won't be so hard when we have a pup with us.
Yeah, and I know Stomp and I we talked about this in another episode, but like the Appalachian Trail through hikers, there's a lot of articles, and I know people that have been on trail and they come back and they have that sort of off trail depression, and I've got to imagine that like you'll get a little bit of that transition to get back to normal life, where you'll eventually hit a routine, and I'm sure the kids will do fine because kids are very resilient, and they just probably will be happy to see a lot of friends, old friends, and make new friends as well when they get back. But are you worried at all about how you're going to feel about getting back to normal?
Yeah, very much. I mean, both Car Rate and I are, and we're, we sold the rig that we're currently in, and we're about to hand it over, and we're already, mentally. We've already looked to buy another one. And obviously it won't be the same, and the ability to travel won't be the same, but it's definitely a lifestyle, and a way of life that we like and we don't want to let go of. And even though it's not as customary in New Jersey, we're going to do our best to try to integrate it into, the life that we have back home. I want to ask your viewers or listeners to help us a little bit with that transition, because we never hiked. We were never outdoors in the New England area. And so, and we have the kids. So I would love to hear from them either, through social, on our Facebook page or our Instagram page, as to hikes that they would recommend, day trips from New Jersey, weekend trips in New Hampshire or Maine, Vermont. What are the resources and things that we have to us being back in New England? So I'm excited to hear what they would say. I'm excited to see what tips and tricks they would give us. I feel like in different parts of the country, in most of this country, people have RVs in their driveway. They have, every home that we drive by where we are right now has an RV. It might be a small pop tent. It might be a fifth wheel. It might be just a trailer. But it's just, my kids had never seen one until we bought one.
Yeah, I know it's not as popular in New England, I think, although I do see them on the road. Matter of fact, I just got back from the Freiburg Fair, and we were looking at I think we looked at a 35-footer. We went inside, and it was pretty nice. But I think when we publish the show, I will put all of your social media stuff into the show notes. And if anybody does want to give you advice, I mean, you're lucky. You have me. I'll give you all the advice you need in New England.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly. But the audience is pretty good, so they'll definitely give you advice. What I don't know a lot about is what goes on in the New Jersey, New York area. I know that they do have the Appalachian Trail down there, and there's some really beautiful spots, but I don't know a lot about it. But speaking of beautiful thoughts, I did want to, before we wrap up, I wanted to find out from you, on this national park tour, what would you say was your top? You don't have to give an exact number, but your top couple of places that you went that are just stunning from your perspective.
So I fell in love with Zion, and I know that Zion is very visible in terms of people going there and whatnot. But the challenge of the hiking the Narrows and hiking Angel's Landing were just remarkable to me, and I can't even believe that I was able to do them. Hiking the Narrows with my kids was just, I will never forget that experience. And not only was it beautiful, but we did canyoneering and rappelling, and our RV park was wonderful. And I just, all around, that was my favorite. My car hate's favorite was Yosemite. And I had been there before, so maybe that's why I just, when you talk about something that's just picturesque and fantasy, and again, we did a fantastic hike there, part of the John Muir Trail and Vernal Falls, and that was, it was splendid. And so I think those are our two top. My kids seem to like I said, they liked Guadalupe, and they loved White Sands, sledding in the sand. I mean, so from a kid's perspective, I think it was a little bit, different, their favorites.
And then as far as, so a lot of those covered sort of the southeast and the west. Anything in the Pacific Northwest that stands out to you, or in the what is it, the upper Midwest, when you're in Idaho and Montana, in that area? Yeah.
So the Pacific Northwest is by far our favorite part of the whole trip. And we loved Olympic National Park, and we did Mount Storm King, which is a phenomenal hike. I think it was 20. I did 20, myself and the kids, we did 2,300 vertical feet, and I think it was 6 or 7 miles. My husband went 200 more feet, which was a little crazy. And scrambling, and we were on ropes and chains, and it was just, the payoff at the end was phenomenal. And that is a national park that's a rainforest, and it had so much of everything. We loved it. But I think our all-time favorite state is Montana. And Glacier National Park was awesome. it was just so awesome. We saw bears. We had some family visiting us. So we sort of did, more, swimming and enjoying the end of the summer, and, barbecuing and biking and whatnot, and not as much hardcore hiking, but we still went to Hidden Lake and a few of the big major spots. But we would definitely go back there and do some more hiking. And a lot, as you know, like almost every national park then has a national forest, which has even better hiking, tied kind of into it. We're in a big RV, which we did not find terribly prohibitive to be right inside the park, right where everything kind of, where the hub of everything is. But there is a lot of rules and regulations now on getting the passes to get into the parks. I mean, there are places that you couldn't even drive into Glacier without the Road to the Sun pass. So, I mean, I was ahead of it, thankfully, but there is a lot of research that needs to be done depending on the time of year you go to these places and what you want to see.
Wow. Well, this was awesome, and I wanted to, I had it in my mind to reach out to you for a while, because one of the things, and I'm not that close to retirement, but close enough to retirement in the next 15 years or so, where I started thinking about, as we go through life, like we're sort of in this like conveyor belt where you're like, okay, you got to go to college, and then, you can take a month to go backpack Europe or do some cool thing. And then after that, you've got to start your career, and then you get married and have kids. And then it's basically like live your life until you're 65 and you retire. And then, then you can go on the road and do these things. And I think more and more, I just wanted to bring you on to highlight that, like, you don't necessarily need to just live that conveyor belt life. Like, you can take 9 months or 10 months to actually go out there. Now, obviously, like, you have to have the financial means, and everybody's situation is different, but you don't just have to lock yourself into that lifestyle. Like, you can break out and do some amazing things. So I wanted to just bring you on to highlight that. So I don't know if you have any advice for people that are sort of feeling like they're stuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you can do it for a week, or you can do it for 2 weeks or a month, or as long as you possibly can. I will say that it surprises us, because obviously there's a lot of retired people on the road and in a lot of the parks. But and the parks are so well designed for that, for all ages. The National Park Service has done such a great job. Our kids do the Junior Ranger program. There's a million vistas and pull-offs and short paved walks to waterfalls. So they have literally something for everyone. But if we didn't go now at this point in time for our family, it would have been very challenging for us to go later. And I don't think that for me personally, that when I'm in my 60s and 70s, I know I'm not going to be able to hike into the Narrows, into water up to my chest. So it's just not going to happen. And those people aren't doing that. And so, and that kind of, it almost made me feel bad but also feel very blessed, because, we're meeting these people in these parks, and then we're going for the day and I'm hiking Angel's Landing. Or I'm rappelling, and then we're coming back, and they're like, oh yeah, we took a walk, or we saw this, and it's like, yeah, like that would be us in another 20 or 30 years. And so I do feel grateful, I do feel blessed that we're able to do it now. We're able to do it with our kids, that our kids were able to do it. There was nothing they weren't able to do. I was probably the weakest link in the family. So, do it, just do it. Is my advice. Don't worry about how do you clean the black tanks. If my portfolio manager, finance husband can figure out how to clean the black tanks, anybody can,
Yeah, well, that's I'll have to catch up with Cartwright to get his story on how he became the expert on all those cleanouts.
Oh, the guy can fix anything now. And it's just amazing. I'm like, he literally said he went from laptop to tool belt and can fix anything. Anything. And so, that's pretty cool that he's able to do that. And, we both were able to learn this lifestyle. And I think a lot of people plan it. Oh, we're going to do that. We're going to do that in 10 more years. We're planning for that. And, but do they ever do it? I'm not really sure. And if your means can only allow you to start small, then just start small. And, I think that for us, we will buy a small trailer. And we will vacation like this a lot more. This will be the way that we go to Disney World next time. This will be the way that we go up to Maine. This will be the way I probably go to New England for Thanksgiving. We'll be in my trailer, and I'll have, all my luxuries of home, and I can be with my family. So this has become a way of life for us, and I would encourage people to just do it.
Awesome. Well, next time you guys come up to, you go to Sebago when you go to Maine, right?
Yeah,
so
usually.
Next time you got to give me some lead time, and we will get you up on some mountains up there.
We would love that. We would love that, especially my little one. I have to ask you one question though before we wrap this up, because you're the expert hiker. So this is kind of, we need to know. Now, I get it if you're like in hiking in water that you need some stability, and so you have like a pole or a walking stick, which we needed when we hiked the Narrows. But I need to understand the craze of poles.
So this is actually, we haven't really, I think we covered this in like the first episode. So I use hiking poles in almost every scenario. The only time that I do not use hiking poles is when I need to be scrambling up rocks, and if I have a hike where I know, okay, I'm going to be 2 miles or so where I'm going to need a lot of like hand holding of rocks to ascend something, then I will not bring my hiking poles. Otherwise, I just bring them if it's flat or if it's gradual. And the primary reason why I do that is because 4 points of contact on the ground are safer than 2.
Okay.
And then the other reason why I do this is particularly on the ascents. When you're or the descents, I'm sorry, when you're going down, the poles, in my opinion, do help as shock absorbers for your legs. So
okay, I'm going to share this valuable information with my family because we've been just thinking it's some sort of marketing ploy.
Yeah. And here's another reason why poles are helpful.
Everyone's got them in its pavement.
Yeah. I mean, that's a little overkill. Like if it's going to be flat all the time, like you don't, and you're not going too long, then it's fine. But the other thing that I will say is when I'm out hiking and I'm in areas and I hike solo a lot. So when I'm out hiking and I'm solo and I'm in a narrow trail and I'm going around a curve or something like that, I'll hit my poles together to just make noise to alert if there's a bear or a moose or anything else around that. I haven't really run into anything, but it gives me peace of mind to say like, okay, I'm going to hit my poles together to make a little bit of noise. Also, when I'm coming up on like a female hiker or something like that, like if I'm 50, 60 yards behind them, I don't want to startle anybody. So I'll hit my poles together or I'll make my noise with my poles behind me so they know I'm coming up behind them. And I'll usually shout out to be, I'll make noise with the pole. They'll turn around. I'll say, hi, how you doing? I'm just going to be coming up behind you. And that way I try not to make them nervous if you're in that situation. So poles are helpful in a bunch of different areas. Gotcha.
Okay, that's very informative. I've been like, you see people on the trails that are elderly, or you see people that you might have had knee surgery, and I get it. It's tough going down sometimes. But I just always wondered because I feel like everyone has them except for us, and we've just wondered if we needed them.
And believe it or not, the other reason why you'll see people with poles is if they're backpacking. Most of the people that are backpacking are using ultralight tents, and they actually use their poles to set up their tents. Okay. So that's another reason why you'll see them.
Okay. It doesn't, like the hardcore hikers that have it, like I'm like, okay, well, they're like way up there and doing all these kind of stuff. But it's just more that supply or accessory has like totally filtered down now to everybody, and even the kids, my kids asked me to ask you because a couple of them wanted them, and I just find that they'll use them as swords and trip over them. So so I said,
now you have your answer.
My answer, see?
Yeah, awesome. So thank you so much. So like I said, I will post up your social media info in the show notes, and thank you so much again. It was good catching up with you. It's been too long, and I think that the audience, was really going to be excited to learn about this type of lifestyle. And I got to try to convince. So you guys got to come up here and convince Kristen to get on the road with me, because I don't think she's into it. She's like Janine pre-COVID, where she's like, I'm not into that. So we gotta figure out a way to convince her.
You don't have to give up any of the luxuries of life.
All right. She was impressed when we were touring them in the Freiburg Fair. So, but again, thank you, and good luck for your, the finishing up, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I look forward to hearing what your listeners have to say. They can find me on @ChasingCartwright.
Awesome. All right, Stomp. So, what'd you think? You gonna buy yourself an RV and get on the road now?
That's probably the only thing holding me back is the purchase of the RV.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big investment.
I don't think that they skimped on their RV. I think it's a pretty nice one.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes life a lot easier when you're doing that. When I drove across country just out of high school, we were in a tiny little Pinto or something really, really small. So I can only imagine what it was like being in a giant RV. So cool. I really enjoyed that, Mike. I've been watching some videos myself, like RV TV is a really popular one. It's just this guy in an RV driving across country, and he documents the whole thing. Listeners might like to check that out, but I thought that was great. So I just want to clarify, they're out of it now, are they? Or are they still traveling?
No, so they sold it. So I think at the end of the day, they'll have been on the road for probably almost a year. So I think that they sold it. They're basically going to be handing the RV over to the new owner, and then I think they're spending a little bit of time on the road still, and then they're going to be heading back home and getting back to sort of a normal lifestyle. So at the end of the day, I think they just sort of punched out for a year and did that travel, which is pretty cool.
Especially for the kids. What an experience. That'll change their life and their direction forever. No question about it.
Yeah. And it's and I touched on this a little bit with Janine, but even still now, we're dealing with, again, it's not my daughter directly, but my daughter's school has had 4 suicides in the last 4 or 5 months, and there's a serious mental health crisis with these young people. And honestly, some of the stuff that me and Janine talked about around free range and making sure that your kids are being raised in a way where they have some sort of they're resilient to things, and they're not 100% sort of wrapped in bubble wrap and safe, and they're out there exploring and building that confidence. I think that that's important. I feel like we're having a mental health crisis with these kids, and anxiety and depression, and I don't know, I feel like maybe exposing them more to the outside is good for them. I don't know, I don't have any answers, but I just feel like maybe this lifestyle may be building more resilience in kids.
I think there's some sickness in this culture, and I think, raising 5 kids myself, I was that hawk watching out for my kids, and just to listen to her talk about boondocking in this remote place where you didn't have to worry about your kids. They could just roam around the desert. And what I was thinking in my head was, what about the snakes and the scorpions? That's what I was thinking, but you don't got to worry.
Yeah, exactly. You always want to protect your kids.
Exactly, but it removed for them that risk of the pervert or whatever in the neighborhood. It's sad, but to hear about that suicide statistic, how old is that daughter? Are you talking college age?
My oldest one in college. Yeah, her college has had 4 suicides in the last, I think 4 to 6 months or something like that. And I don't know the details on all of them. I'm sure that they all have unique situations, but just sort of as a general theme around mental health and building confidence within young people, I think that hiking and experiencing the outdoors, it doesn't have to be going in an RV for a year. It could be as simple as just doing a hike to Mount Monadnock that maybe you didn't think you could do. Obviously, you want to do it safely, listen to us to kind of get your experience. But I think just being able to sort of step outside your normal comfort zone and experience something that maybe you didn't think that you were capable of. And I think Janine and the family as well, they were not outdoorsy people. So I think that, there's something to be said for finding things that you're you're not experienced in and learning them. It doesn't matter how old you are or when you pick it up, but I do think that, getting kids to the point where they can build confidence, and a lot of times that means that you've got to kind of let go and let them sort of experience life on their own and in a controlled environment, but you don't have to hover over them all the time.
Yeah. And hats off to them too, because homeschooling is phenomenal. If you can devote the time and do it, it's the best option for your kids. I mean, research has shown that over and over again. So, yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, I used
Life
to love
of
the
adventure.
Homeschooling. There was nothing better than like making my daughter cry because we were fighting over 5th grade math. Sorry to my daughter.
No, wait. You guys homeschooled?
No. But like, I remember doing like math homework. Again, like I tapped out around 6th, 7th grade. That was when I ended my math knowledge. But like, they teach the kids to do math differently now. So like,
of course they do.
I did like multiplication and division a certain way. And then I would try to do it and they would be like, no, the teacher said you're not allowed to do it that way. And that your parents are going to try to do it that way, but that's not the right way.
Yeah, I lived through that too.
Tears start coming. It's like, ah!
I lived through that myself. That was nonsense. What the hell was that? Oh my God.
I don't know. You got to carry the one. They're like,
don't
you
get
can't
me
do it that way.
started. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, yeah. But hopefully the audience, hopefully the audience will enjoy it and we'll hear. But you want to move on to search and rescue stuff? We got a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. This first one, I think this is like right in your backyard, so I'm assuming you might have been involved in this one. So this was going back to October 11th. There was a fishing game was notified of an injured hiker on Welch Dickey in Thornton. The hiker was a 15-year-old from North Chelmsford, and they were hiking with a church group of about 15 people when this young lady slipped while descending the summit of Dickey Mountain and suffering a serious but non-life-threatening injury. So she was with 15 people, so a lot of people to carry her off, I guess.
That's not the case, though. You're talking a lot of young kids and things like that. So,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was warmish.
So you went on this, you actually helped out with this one?
I did, yeah. I was one of the first few up with Jonathan Demler, a CEO from Fish and Game, and my one story about this, I mean, it was a pretty generic rescue. I mean, low leg injury, that type of thing, and we ended up carrying her down in a litter, and what we've been doing on that trail is just adding the wheel after the Dickey ledges, or below the Dickey ledges. So you have that really steep, open, exposed section, and we are adding the fat bike wheel to that lower section, and it just makes a world of a difference carrying people. But the one funny story about this is I approached the young person and said, hey, this is what you can expect. You know, there's a litter coming up and this and that. And she just cut me off immediately and said, oh, it's okay. I know. I've watched the show. So she was a fan of Northwood's Law. So she's like, just shut me down. Like, no, I got this. I've been watching the show.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Did you tell her that the camera crew will be up shortly?
I don't know if I did or not. I mean, I honestly haven't seen those guys in quite a while, but it was a good moment. And then I actually said to her, oh, you know that guy behind me, Jonathan Demler, he's like on the show all the time. You might want his autograph.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. It was cute.
Now, was the whole like church group or whatever, the whole group of people, were they all standing around or did they all go down?
5 or 6 were there,
yeah.
And then the rest went down ahead of her. And we had a full crew. I mean, a ton of people showed up, and that's been sort of the highlight of this year in general. We are literally at 33 missions this year. We averaged 25. We're at 33, which is phenomenal. But that being said, every single mission, we have like 20 people showing up. It's just, we're in like this mode. It's just a beautiful place to be for search and rescue right now. talented people, engaged people, skilled people, quick learners. I just can't say enough about the rescue teams right now. They're just awesome.
Is it like new members that are showing up, or is it
New members? New members are a big part of it. 40 to 50% of the responders are new members, and they're just like, boom, boom, boom. I got this. Quick learners, boom. I got it. I'm on it. I can't say enough.
Do you feel like was there a lot of older folks that had been involved for a long time that were kind of holding on because there wasn't a lot of volunteers, and now that they see there's like enough new members, they're kind of like, okay, I can step back?
I can't really say that. I mean, because we do still have the first generation responders as well that are just kicking ass and responding just the same. But of the new recruits, I'm saying there's a quality now that I was talking to a member just the other night on this rescue, and we were trying to figure out, what about social media? Do you think it's social media that is tapping into this avid, ardent hiking community, as opposed to the earlier days where these search and rescue teams just didn't have that outreach connection, that networking of people that were online all the time? It's got to be part of it, because I just can't explain it otherwise. Your teal goats, those folks, those people that are just wake up and have to roll out of bed with their boots on and go, I think that's what we're tapping into right now. Not just this side of the state, but all the teams. And it's just really exciting to watch.
Yeah, no, it's great that you're not dealing with number issues. I know, obviously, like during the week, it's a lot more difficult, but for sure. The more that you have, I mean, I remember when we were hiking up on Cannon, and we were kind of talking about, how you would have to maneuver a litter up like the High Cannon Trail. Like, it's just crazy to think about how narrow these trails are, and the idea that you're going to have to, how do you get somebody down? But you were saying, like, a lot of times you just got to like pass it off, and if you're going to pass people off on a litter, you need easily enough. 18 to 25 people, right?
Yeah, but that may tie in to this whole RV COVID thing. Like, people may be around more, so perhaps that's another factor. They're home, they're available.
True too, actually.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's interesting to think about, but the culture has changed. It's just more dynamic and just reliable, I guess is a good word. It's more reliable. I mean, certainly the fishing game is happy about it on the western side here. So very cool. That's just my anecdotal takes on it.
Yeah, it is true though. Like what you're talking about is, I wonder, like, there's probably a lot of people too that are moving up to the area. Like for me, like I look at me personally, like I'm working remote 100% now, and that's not going to change at once if COVID goes away. So I could move to anywhere I wanted to move to. The only thing holding me back is, like, I've still got kids in high school, but when that changes, like, I don't think I'm going to be staying where I live now. I would probably move up to New Hampshire, and I don't know if, depending on where I would end up, but like I would join a search and rescue crew if I live within the area. So maybe you're seeing more people that are avid hikers that were living down in Massachusetts that are moving up to New Hampshire and joining up. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a possibility. We've had a lot of actually out-of-staters that have moved up recently that don't qualify because they don't have that domicile in the state. But they're always encouraged when you finally get your license, reapply or try another group like Lakes Region. They're definitely up here, and they're looking to help out. So it's very cool.
Yeah. Okay. So on to the next rescue here. So this must have been going on around the same time as the Welsh Dickey. So this was on October 11th. It's like 2:30. I think the other call was like 3:30. So Fish and Game was notified of an injured hiker on the Manning Trail on Mount Cardigan. And this hiker was 62 years old, female from Grafton, New Hampshire. And she was hiking with a family member. So they had summited Mount Cardigan, and they were descending the Manning Trail just beyond the summit of Fire Screw. And so that's like a ledgy area there, I think, if I'm thinking about it correctly. So the hiker fell and injured her lower leg, preventing her from walking any further. There was some other hikers there that were able to call for assistance, and they gave some food and clothing to keep her comfortable. I guess it was a mix of the Alexandria Fire Department, Bristol Fire Department, and Bridgewater Fire Department that were the first to arrive to the location around 4:30, and it was about 1.5 miles from the AMC Lodge on Cardigan. So conservation officers and members of the Upper Valley Wilderness Response Team were able to assist in the carryout, and she was at the trailhead by 8 o'clock and was transported to hospital in Plymouth for further evaluation. So pretty standard.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah, and just to talk about Upper Valley for a second, they are a volunteer team in the southwestern part of the state. They do a lot of work with the New England Canine team as well. So you'll see their name sometimes, in particular over at Cardigan and Monadnock. So...
Yeah, matter of fact, I want to. I got to talk to you offline about that Mowgli hike. So I want to try to get that going in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, nice! At like the buddy hike, or just a private thing?
I think just me and you and whoever, if like maybe Nick or Chaga or something like that. Want to get out there. I want to check that out.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right, so. Next one here, unprepared hikers on Liberty Springs Trail. Stop me if you've heard this before. 7:10 p.m. on October 12th, Fish and Game was notified of a pair of hikers who were in distress on the Liberty Springs Trail. The hikers had run behind on their planned hiking timeline, and they were facing descending the trail in the dark. You want to guess what caused them some issues?
Did that fiery orb in the sky go below the horizon?
It did. And you know what happens when that happens, right?
I'm not quite sure what happens.
It gets dark out, and if you don't have lights, you're screwed. So, which is interesting. So after considering the challenges faced by the pair, it was decided to mount a rescue effort in order to prevent the hikers from becoming lost from the trail or injured trying to hike down the rugged terrain. So a conservation officer responded to provide lights and ensure that the group made it to the trailhead safely. So two 20-something females from Maine were tired but uninjured. So due to the unpreparedness of the hikers, the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department will be recommending that they're billed for this preventable rescue. So our friend George, if you're listening, just a heads up, these ones are going to get billed.
Hooray, George.
Yeah, exactly.
All that advocacy, all that lobbying.
Exactly. But it's funny. This is like, I think the third or fourth one that I can think of on Liberty Springs where this scenario happens. Like, I think people just hike late. They start late and then they forget the headlamp.
Hey, when I was coming down Smartsburg, when I did that Algonquin trip, that's 5 miles from Sandwich Dome until Smartsburg. It's 5 miles. So it's pretty long. Halfway through, it started to get dark, and just out of morbid curiosity, I turned on my phone flashlight to see what would happen. It was pretty lame, man. It was terrible for light. No light source. I was just like trying to shine it to my feet, maybe 2 or 3 feet ahead of me, but it was not great. So people just get those headlamps. They're like, what, $10, $15 now? Spread the word.
Yeah, exactly. And then honestly, like, one headlamp is no headlamps in my opinion. Like, I always have two. I'm paranoid. I'm always thinking like mine's going to die.
Yep.
All right. So next one here is on Mount Monadnock. So this was October 17th. So this hiker was on the White Dot Trail, a short distance below the summit. So that's a bit of a long way. So 42-year-old female from North Attleboro had suffered a fall at around 3:30 and was in need of assistance. A lot of late afternoon issues, huh? It's interesting. So Monadnock Park staff, which Monadnock, unfortunately, it's good and it's bad. Like there's a park staff like right at the entrance there that's pretty much always around. So they can jump on rescues pretty quickly, but that doesn't mean you should be doing anything dumb on Monadnock, but just for reference. So the park staff, Good Samaritans, and then members of the Upper Valley Wilderness Response Team and conservation officers from Fish and Game responded to the White Arrow Trail. They did an assessment, and it was determined that they had to carry the victim down in a litter. And I guess they determined that the quickest way off the mountain would be to ascend a short distance to the summit and then go down the White Arrow Trail to a waiting ambulance. So rescue teams endured wet, steep, and rocky trail conditions to make it to the old toll road in an awaiting ambulance. So they ended up getting the person out around 7 o'clock. I don't know the White Arrow. Most of the time I go up.
I don't know any of it. I'm so ignorant about Monadnock.
Yeah. I've been on it twice. I go up, I think it's the Spalding Trail, I think. I always go up that way and then come down White Dot, I think is the way that I've done it. But I don't know. There's a ton of trails there, so I don't really
it's
know.
like to me it's like the Bermuda Triangle of mountains. Like it's just such bad news. You hear so many stories of people getting in trouble up there. It's amazing. And it's short. It's like low in stature, right? What is it? 25?
Well,
is it 3?
I love Monadnock, and it's a tough mountain. I think it's very accessible, and I think that people know it. And I think most of the people go up this like White Dot Trail, and it's actually pretty ledgy and not that great for people that aren't experienced, like that aren't comfortable in sort of ledgy open hikes. I mean, I go a different way. Because me and my friends like to do some exploring. There's some secret spots there that I don't want to talk too much about, but we do a lot of exploring on Monadnock, and it's a great hike, and it's actually a lot tougher than you would think.
Okay. One of these days.
Anyway.
It's just too far away now.
Yeah. I'll get you out there. We'll do it. You know what? In my opinion, I really enjoy grabbing a few friends on a Friday night and hitting the road by like 2 o'clock in the summer, getting to Monadnock by like 3:30, and then hiking up. You spend a little bit of the sunset up there, and then you make your way down. Maybe you got to throw your headlamp on, but like in the middle of the summer, like it gets dark at 8:30 or so. So if you get on trail by 3:30, you got 5 hours. I love doing the Friday night Monadnock hike. It's a great place, and then you'll hit dinner somewhere around there, and it's fun.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Yeah, for me that would be Cardigan. Like that same plan of adventure would be Cardigan for me, just distance-wise. But yeah, I get it. That's cool.
Yeah, Kearsarge South is the other one that I like doing that on. It's a nice like Friday night hike.
Yeah. And that's the
one
one with
episode on
the fire tower, right?
It's got the fire tower, yeah. We should do a Friday night hike episode, and we'll do that in the spring.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Good call.
Anyway, so last one that I have for this episode, so October 18th, this is pretty, Black Cap Mountain. So the female hiker, 52 from Massachusetts, was at the summit of Black Cap when she experienced a knee injury. She was able to get herself about halfway back to the trailhead before rescuers arrived. So she got herself halfway down. She was not far from I think that trail is maybe about 1.25 miles. So she's probably pretty close to the trailhead. CO from Fish and Game, along with North Conway Fire Department, was there with an ambulance. So she was also assisted by some Good Samaritans and had her own hiking party with her. So I guess 12:30 they got the call. She was at her car at the trailhead by 1:45. So not a big deal. Black Cap is right at the trailhead is right at the top of Hurricane Mountain Road, so it's not that far from the peak to the trailhead.
Okay, which is North Conway area, basically,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
And Black Cap is a great hike, especially. I mean, the Hurricane Mountain Road closes. I think it's probably closed by now, so it's not that accessible at this point. But in the summertime, it's a great hike, good beginner hike if you want to get out and get some really good views, looking down into the North Conway Valley and out to the moats.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's it for the New Hampshire Search and Rescue Stomp. There was a lot that popped off in that like week of October 11th to the 18th, but before that we had like a period where there was like 4 weeks with nothing.
Yeah, 6 weeks even. I think it was 6. Yeah, there was 0. Maybe a couple escorts here and there, but no active volunteer team participation.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I got one more that's a national story that, like, this was all over social media. It wasn't as viral as as that other story that was like the change your voicemail, but it was like sort of on that level. I got like texts from like, whenever I know something's
where this
viral,
is
like,
going.
it's like my family members will text me and be like, "Did you hear this?" And it's like, it so made national news, but it was a lost hiker on Mount Elbert, which is in Colorado, which I guess is like their highest peak. But apparently it's not like that hard of a hike. It's just their highest peak. I guess there's a lot of elevation, but it's not a difficult hike. But apparently this person got lost. Somebody called 911 and was like, my friend hasn't returned from their hike. And it turns out that like search and rescue was calling this person, but they said that they weren't picking up the call because they just thought it was spam. So they must have thought that like someone was calling them to sell them a extended warranty, and instead it was actually the search and rescue team being like, "Where are you?" So
That's such a beautiful story. I love that story.
yeah. I mean, I'm skeptical. Like, I need more detail. Like, it doesn't make like if you're missing overnight and you get a phone call, like, first of all, like,
I'd
if
be
your phone's
so
working
happy.
for you to get a phone call, like, wouldn't you just call? Like, here's where I am. Like, none of this story makes no sense.
It doesn't. Yeah, like, oh my God, somebody's calling. I'm saved. Send the helicopter.
It makes no sense whatsoever. But apparently, like, it's a good headline.
Yeah, I guess. It is
It's
weird.
like those stories of, like, I think there's like 2 or 3 of them that I've heard where like people are like mounting a big search for people, and then it turns out that the person they're looking for is actually like helping with the search as well and doesn't realize they're looking for them.
Right.
Those stories have popped up before too.
Oh, that's classic. We should cover that one. That's a great story.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Look that up.
this is a good episode.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered on today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information on slasrpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until next time, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are?
Lieutenant James Neeland, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.